that's kind of how I have fun. Because one of the things I'm discovering as a teacher now is that the best teaching comes when we learn together. And maybe we should turn on the lights too, if you don't mind. Could somebody hit the lights there? And for me, this trip was definitely like that. We learned together. Talking to these people, this is a new and wonderful experience to be able to talk to people like this. It enlarges my thinking about what's possible. But the most important conversation now comes from these guys, and so I'm going to hand this over to you. And the question that could somebody maybe close the curtain there so it's all the way closed? What I asked them to do was just to kind of give you a synopsis about what they heard in the different interviews, and we'll try to cover most of the interviews and do a round with that, and then we'll follow up with a second question, which is has something to do with what one of the lessons, or big lessons, or major lessons from the whole experience. So I'm just going to pass this. You okay with this?
Sure. Okay, well, I'm going to talk a little bit about Bill Moyers because that was a very important, influential interview for all of us. Bill Moyers is the basis for our curriculum at Mount Madonna for our Values of American Thought class. And we studied a lot about his interviews, and he said something very thoughtful that was, this is true, but also that we create ourselves by what notices us as well. So it's kind of a give and take, and like opportunities that find us also. Another thing he talked about, we asked him about his experience of 9/11, and he talked about his son, and his son was really close to it, and there was a conflict, and he said that after he had survived, he expressed his grief in dancing, and that we were all talking about it afterwards. It was weird.
And I wasn't really sure what that meant, if it was in a good way or a bad way, but everyone seemed to have less than not having political involvement, which means less biased judges. And he's created, he saved the city budget, which was a big deal back then, because New York City wasn't allowed to borrow money anymore, which is a really bad thing when you're a big city. So yeah, that was really good. And these were all things that he strongly believed in, and he really had a lot of convictions about his beliefs. And that's really what I got from this interview, is he told us what he wanted to get done, and he just went and did it, and that really kind of spoke to me, I guess. Just him doing what he wanted to do and being able to get it done and kind of save the city in a way.
All right. One of the most inspiring, John, he is the president of the New York Times Foundation, and he raised about $60 million for the 9/11 Neediest Fund, as well as he saved about 6,000 small businesses from going under after that event, which is amazing. And he did this all on his own. He told us that, he was sitting in his office one day after the 9/11, and he thought, I have to get something together. I have to do something about save people's livelihoods. And someone who can kind of just do that, act off their instincts and go for it, is pretty inspiring. It's really, he has a powerful position inside. These are people that people look down on sometimes and don't expect that they can, go somewhere with their lives after all these hardships they've gone through. And she talked about how she was once sick, and there was some people that used to be in jail walking down the hall, and she fell, and they just ran and helped her up. And then she talked about the hardening of kind of, I guess, her heart in some ways, and kind of understanding people. Someone in her office had their throat slit at one point, but one of the people they were helping with, but she came to work the next day, and it was just, sometimes you have to do things.
We didn't really interview her. It was like slide by the seat of your pants kind of thing, and we just flew into her office, and I really enjoyed just being with her since it wasn't exactly an interview. I think we asked one question, and it was kind of funny. like Shruti asked her, what was it exactly?
Something about like why she chose to do art community.
Okay, well, he introduced, SN introduced her, and she's the executive of Bread and Roses, which is like, it's part of the union, but it's the culture side, it's the art side. Bread and Roses, they want, you know, food, they want to live, but they also want roses, they want happiness, they want the beauty. And so it was about art. Her question was about art and why she was doing it, like how'd she connect art with community service. And she just came back at her, and like Shruti totally held her ground, but she was just like, why do you think they're not the same thing, you know, like. And it was she was just so energetic and just so.
Elizabeth Sters, and he's also a philanthropist. And he's at his Open Society Institute and Soros Foundation. And I think what was most moving for me was to see how much he was doing, but how much heart he put into it. And his fellow citizens. And he talked about one of the Institute of Justice, was it? And a lot of people didn't, like, there's a lot of, for rehab, there's a lot of people that, people would just go to jail. They'd pick up drug addicts and just, that was the way they treated them. They didn't, try to, put them in rehab or anything. They thought that the only way to clean up the streets was to just put them in jail and not give them a chance. And he decided, and, some of his friends decided that if they gave them a chance, if they gave them a place to go and recover, then he would be able to, then they'd recover and they wouldn't do this fruitless jail, crowd at the jails and not have anything get done. So, and nobody believed him. So they started a place, and they had a place where they could go. And he actually went and talked to people on the street and said, "Will you come here? Will you voluntarily check yourself in?" And a lot of people went, and it was the start of it.
I'm going to talk about Carl Weisbrod, who, as SN said, is he's the president of the Downtown Alliance, and that's an organization that's basically in charge of the rebuilding of the World Trade Center. It's a huge, huge project. And he was a week just because it felt so overwhelming. And I talked to SN for a while about it that morning. I couldn't decide if I should just stay in and sleep or if I should go out and do some more interviews. And I remembered the DC trip last year. Almost everybody said when we asked them for some advice was, if you have an opportunity, take you. That day was Juju Chang. And I'm really glad that I was there to see that, because it wasn't even like an interview. We were just sitting there being mesmerized by this woman. She had such charm and charisma that we just sat there and listened to her stories. Yeah. And we asked her a couple different things that I really took to heart. Keep herself from being so bogged down by the stuff that she talks to people about. Oh, Juju Chang is the ABC news correspondent, by the way. She interviews people, and she told a story about this girl who was in a lot of trouble and was finally reconnected. I really appreciated her advice was how you live your day is indeed how you live your life. And if you just think about that, the characteristics that you see in yourself day to day, the way you choose what to do, what not to do, can be applied to your life. You learn a lot about yourself. Just thinking, what did I do today?
She's the chief of staff for Ambassador Negroponte. She does so much stuff. One of her quotes that we tried to springboard a question off of, I don't believe that we did actually, was my job is a mile wide and an inch deep. So she does virtually everything that there might. And when she was living in France, she kept on postponing when she was supposed to go back to the States, so she could try to find a job out there. And she eventually did. And so that changed the entire course of her life. I'm going to move on to what I learned, which also comes from Saskia Ryan, was she described her day as a grab bag. And, well, that's a relatively easy concept for me to grasp. You have a grab bag, you you don't know what's going to be in it. But as soon as you open it up, you find out what you have to work with for that day. Sometimes you have the good and plenties, which really aren't good, because there's sure are plenty of them. And then sometimes you have the Skittles. And those are the things that you try to have. So that's why I really learned from this trip. And honestly, from just the change from the DC trip to the New York trip was large for me because I had to carry a lot of equipment. I had to carry a lot of equipment. I had to pick up for some of the slack that was usually passed on to other members of the male students during the trip. But I thoroughly enjoyed studying